The title of this recording is What It Took to Survive a Day in Ancient Rome. But that title is a misnomer. It's a quiet deception. It suggests a checklist, a series of steps that, if followed, guarantee success. It implies a formula for seeing the next sunrise. There is no such formula. Survival in the heart of the world's greatest empire was not a science. It was a chaotic, desperate, and often losing gamble. It was a matter of luck, of instinct, of 1,000 tiny, unthinking decisions made between one breath and the next. The question is not what it took to survive. The question is how anyone survived at all. And to understand that, you have to be there. You have to feel the grit under your fingernails and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. You have to wake up not to the gentle glow of dawn, but to the suffocating darkness of a room that is more a box than a home. So let's begin. The time is just before the 5th hour. The sun has not yet begun to trouble the horizon. There is no light. There is only a spectrum of blackness. You are awake. You have been for some time. Sleep in the city of Rome is not a peaceful refuge. It is a temporary cessation of the struggle, a shallow dive into a restless quiet that is never truly quiet. You lie on a straw-stuffed mattress that rests on a simple wooden frame. The straw is old. It smells of dust, of mold, of the faint, sour scent of your own sweat, and the sweat of whoever might have slept here before you. The air in this room, your cubiculum, is thick and heavy. It's a cocktail of stale humanity. The smoke from your neighbor's brazier, which seeped through the cracks in the thin wooden partition hours ago, still hangs in the air, acrid and biting. You can taste it on the back of your tongue. You can feel its fine soot settling on your skin. You live on the 4th floor of an insula, one of the great tenement blocks that cram the winding, narrow streets of the Subura. The Subura is not a place for poets or philosophers. It is the city's churning gut, a district of relentless, grinding poverty, of noise, of crime, of life lived at its most raw and precarious. Your building, like all the others, is a monument to greed and haste. Built of cheap timber frame and unfired brick, it sways in the wind. When the man in the apartment above you rolls over in his sleep, you hear the groan of the floorboards, you feel the dust shift and sprinkle down onto your face. You know in a distant, academic way that these buildings are prone to collapse. You have seen the rubble of one just a few streets over. You have heard the screams. But it is a dull fear, a background hum, like the tinnitus that never quite leaves your ears. The more immediate fear is fire. Every flickering lamp, every unattended cooking fire, is a potential inferno. The vigils, the city's watchmen and fire brigade, are a comforting thought, but you know the reality. By the time they could navigate their buckets and axes through these choked alleyways, your home would be a memory of ash. You swing your legs off the bed. The floor is cold, rough, and splintered. You don't bother with shoes yet. You move by memory in the pitch black, your hands brushing against the damp, crumbling plaster of the wall. There is no window in this room. Light is a luxury for those who can afford street-facing apartments. Your room is an internal space, a cell buried in the guts of the building. Your first task of the day is to deal with the chamber pot. It sits in the corner, a simple clay vessel, its contents from the previous night adding another layer to the room's complex stench. You have two choices. You can carry it down 4 flights of treacherous, unlit stairs to the cesspit in the courtyard, a journey fraught with the risk of a misstep and a foul spill. Or you can do what most of your neighbors do. You can take it to the building's only opening to the outside world, a small, shuttered hole at the end of the corridor, and empty it into the street below. You choose the latter. It is the path of least resistance, the choice of efficiency over civic duty. You shuffle down the corridor, the pot held out in front of you. You can hear the snores, the coughs, the whimpers of the other families packed into their own small spaces. Someone is arguing in a hushed, angry whisper. A baby is crying, a thin, reedy sound that seems to be the official anthem of the Roman night. You reach the opening, unlatch the wooden shutter, and are hit by a blast of relatively cooler, but no less foul air. The street below is still a river of darkness. You listen. You are supposed to shout a warning. Cave, beware, it is the law, a perfunctory legal protection against being sued by some unfortunate soul who happens to be passing below. You don't shout, it's too early. Who would be out there anyway? You tilt the pot and let the contents fall into the void. You hear a distant, wet slap. You close the shutter, the task complete. You have just contributed to the very filth you will have to navigate in a few minutes. This is the fundamental logic of the city. Back in your room, you get dressed. The process is simple. You own one tunic. It is made of coarse, undyed wool. It is stiff with dirt and sweat. It hangs on a peg on the wall. You pull it over your head. It is your clothing for work, for leisure, for sleep if the night is cold enough. Underneath, you wear nothing. Trousers are for barbarians. Undergarments are an affectation of the wealthy and the soft. Your footwear is a pair of heavy leather sandals, the soles thick and worn. You strap them on. There is no breakfast. The concept of a large morning meal is foreign to you. You might chew on a piece of hard bread if there is any left from yesterday. A crust of wheat bread, hard as a rock, which you dip into a cup of water to make it chewable. The water comes from a large clay amphora in the corner of the room. You filled it 2 days ago from the public fountain at the end of the street, and it has a flat, stale taste. This small, unsatisfying ritual is less about sustenance and more about silencing the initial protests of your stomach. Before you leave, you perform the day's first and most essential act of faith. On a small shelf sits a tiny, smoke-blackened statuette, crudely carved. This is your lar, your household god, the guardian of your family and your meager existence. You dip a finger in the water cup and touch it to the figurine's head. You mutter a short, informal prayer, not a plea for wealth or glory. Just a simple request: let me survive the day. Let me not be crushed by a collapsing wall. Let me not be stabbed for the few coins I might earn. Let the fever that took your neighbor last week pass me by. It is a prayer born of pragmatism, not piety. The gods are powerful and capricious, and it is best to stay on their good side. You are ready to leave. You step out into the corridor and begin the descent. The stairs are steep, narrow, and uneven. There is no handrail. You place your feet carefully, your hand flat against the wall for balance. The air grows thicker, more pungent with each floor you descend. You pass the communal latrine on the ground floor, a simple plank with holes over a cesspit. The stench that wafts out is overpowering, a physical force that makes you gag. You hurry past it, out of the main door, and into the street. And here the day truly begins. The world transforms from a place of smells and textures into a place of overwhelming sound. The Subura is waking up. The law banning wheeled traffic from the city's streets during daylight hours has just lifted for the morning. The noise is instantaneous and deafening. Heavy carts, their iron-rimmed wheels grinding against the basalt paving stones, rumble past, laden with goods for the city's markets. The drivers are shouting, cursing their slow-moving oxen, cracking their whips. Shopkeepers are throwing open their heavy wooden shutters with a series of loud bangs that echo down the alley. The rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer has already begun. A baker is shouting his wares. A fishmonger is bellowing about the freshness of his catch, which even at this early hour is questionable. The sound is not just noise, it is a physical presence. It presses in on you, vibrates through the soles of your sandals, makes your teeth ache. You must shout to be heard, even by someone standing next to you. You join the river of humanity flowing through the street. A tide of tunics, a sea of determined, anxious faces. These are your people, the plebs, the common folk, the backbone and the burden of Rome. You are all heading somewhere. You are all part of the great morning ritual known as the Salutatio. You are a cleans. You have a patroness, a patron, a wealthy, powerful man whose orbit you exist in. Your relationship is one of mutual, if deeply unbalanced, dependence. He provides you with a sliver of his wealth and influence. In return, you provide him with your presence, your loyalty, your vote if you have one, and your willingness to be part of the crowd that follows him through the city, a living testament to his importance. Your immediate goal is to get your sportula, the daily handout. This is your wage. This is what will feed you today. Your patron, a minor senator named Titus Flavius Crispus, lives on the Esquiline Hill, a neighborhood of wealth and gardens that feels a world away from the squalor of the Subura. The journey is an obstacle course. You must dodge the carts, the running children, the packs of stray dogs that scavenge in the gutters. You step over piles of refuse, puddles of indeterminate liquid, and the occasional sleeping drunkard who has not yet found his way home. The smell of the street is a complex symphony. The underlying notes are of human and animal waste, of rot and decay. Over this are layered the smells of commerce, the sharp, salty tang of the fishmonger's stall, the warm, comforting scent of baking bread, the metallic smell of the smithy, the pungent aroma of leather from the tanner's shop. As you climb the hill, the streets become wider, cleaner. The buildings are no longer precarious towers of timber, but stately homes of stone and plaster, their walls painted with elegant frescoes. The noise recedes from a deafening roar to a more manageable clamor. You arrive at your patron's house. You are not alone. A crowd of at least 50 other men is already gathered before the great wooden door. They are all dressed like you, in simple tunics. They stand in small groups, talking in low voices, their eyes fixed on the entrance. There is a hierarchy even here in this crowd of supplicants. Those who have been clients for longer or who perform more valuable services for the patron stand closer to the door. You are a relatively new addition to Titus's retinue, so you find your place near the back. The wait begins. You stand under the warming sun, your stomach rumbling. The doors remain shut. This is part of the ritual. The patron must demonstrate his importance by making you wait. It reinforces the power dynamic. It reminds you of your place. You pass the time by listening to the gossip. Who is in favor with the patron? Who is out? Which senator made a fool of himself in the curia yesterday? Whose wife is having an affair with a gladiator? This is the currency of the city, the information that oils the social machine. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the doors creak open. A slave, a stern-faced man with an air of immense self-importance, appears. He holds a ledger and a stylus. He begins to call out names. One by one, the clients step forward. They are admitted into the courtyard, where the patron himself will greet them. He will be dressed in a fine white toga, a symbol of his citizenship and status. The greeting will be brief, formal. A handshake, a nod. Then they will be directed to another slave, the paymaster, who will dispense the sportula. Sometimes it is a basket of food, bread, olives, some cheese, a few vegetables. Today you hope for money. Money is freedom. Food is sustenance, but money can be used for anything. It can be used to buy a cup of cheap, watered-down wine at a tavern. It can be used to place a small bet on the chariot races. It can be used to pay for a visit to the baths. Your name is called, Lucius Valerius. The slave drones, not looking at you. You step forward, your heart beating a little faster. You enter the courtyard. The air is cool and smells of flowers and water from the central fountain. It is a different world. Titus Flavius Crispus is there as expected. He is a man of middle age, his face fleshy, his expression one of bored tolerance. He extends a hand. You grasp it. His hand is soft, clean. Yours is rough and calloused. Salve Lucius, he says, his voice flat. Salve Domine, you reply, your voice respectful, deferential. He has already moved on to the next man. You have been acknowledged. You have fulfilled your duty. You move to the paymaster, who sits at a small table. He consults his list, finds your name, and counts out a few small bronze coins into your palm. 6 sesterces. It is not a fortune, but it is enough. It is the price of your dignity for the day. With the coins clutched tightly in your fist, you leave the patron's house. Some of the other clients will now be expected to follow Titus as he makes his way to the forum, swelling his entourage. Your duties for the day are done. You are free. The sun is now high in the sky. The city is in full swing. Your next destination is the Forum Romanum, not for business, not for politics, but simply because it is the center of everything. It is the place to see and be seen, to hear the news, to feel the pulse of the empire. You walk down from the Esquiline, back into the chaotic heart of the city. The Forum is a vast, open space, paved with stone and surrounded by the most important buildings in the world. But it is not the clean, sterile marble ruin we imagine today. It is a riot of color, sound, and activity. The basilicas, the great halls of law and commerce, are thronged with people. Lawyers in their togas shout arguments, their arms gesticulating wildly. Merchants haggle over contracts. Money changers sit at their tables, the mensara, their scales clinking as they weigh out coins. The air is thick with the scent of incense drifting from the temples that line the square. The Temple of Vesta with its eternal flame. The Temple of Saturn, which houses the state treasury. The Temple of Julius Caesar, built on the spot where his body was cremated, a site of pilgrimage and political power. You find a spot on the steps of the Basilica Julia and watch the spectacle unfold. A politician is delivering a speech from the rostra, the speaker's platform decorated with the prows of captured warships. His voice is hoarse, but he bellows on, his words largely lost in the general din. A funeral procession for a wealthy noble snakes its way across the forum. Professional mourners wail dramatically. Actors wear the wax masks of the deceased's ancestors, and a brass band plays a somber tune. Slaves are being sold near the Temple of Castor and Pollux. They stand on a rotating platform, a placard around their neck detailing their age, origin, and skills. An auctioneer shouts their prices, extolling their virtues, while potential buyers inspect them like livestock, checking their teeth, feeling their muscles. You watch it all with a kind of detached fascination. This is the grand theater of Rome, and you are just a spectator in the cheapest seats. Your 6 sesterces feel heavy in your hand. The morning's bread is a distant memory. Your stomach aches with a familiar, hollow pain. It is time for prandium, the midday meal. You leave the grandeur of the forum and plunge back into the labyrinth of side streets. Here you will find the lifeblood of the Roman plebeian diet, the thermopolium. These are fast food counters, open to the street, with large clay pots or dolia set into an L-shaped counter. The pots contain hot food, kept warm by a fire beneath. You approach one, the smell is enticing, a mix of stewed meat, spices, and roasting grain. The proprietor, a stout woman with flour on her arms, gives you a businesslike nod. The menu is simple and unchanging. There is a thick pea soup with bits of bacon. There are sausages glistening with fat. And there is the staple of staples, pools, a thick porridge of wheat or barley, the Roman equivalent of polenta. It is cheap, it is filling, and it is bland. You decide to splurge. You spend 2 of your sesterces on a small bowl of the pea soup and a chunk of dark, heavy bread to go with it. You also buy a cup of wine for 1 sesterce. It is the cheapest vintage, sour and thin, and the proprietor mixes it generously with water from a large jug. You don't sit, there is nowhere to sit. You stand by the counter, jostled by other customers, and eat quickly. You dip the bread into the hot, salty soup. It is delicious. It is the most flavorful thing you will eat all day. The wine is rough, but it warms your stomach and dulls the edges of your fatigue. You watch the life of the street as you eat. A group of soldiers off-duty swagger past, their armor clanking. A wealthy woman is carried by in a litter, her face hidden behind curtains, her 4 burly slaves sweating under the load. A street performer is juggling knives for a small crowd, hoping for a few coins. Everything is for sale. Everything has a price. You finish your meal, wiping the bowl clean with the last piece of bread. You feel better. The world seems a little less hostile. With 3 sesterces remaining, you have a decision to make. You could save the money. It would be the sensible thing to do. But sensibility is a luxury. The afternoon is for odium, for leisure. The Roman workday is short. Most business is concluded by the 6th or 7th hour. The rest of the day is for relaxation, for pleasure, for forgetting the hardships of the morning. And there is no greater institution for Roman leisure than the baths. You decide to go to the baths of Trajan. They are not the closest, but they are one of the largest and most magnificent. The entrance fee is a single quadrans, the smallest Roman coin, a quarter of an as. Your remaining sesterces are more than enough. The walk takes you up the Oppian Hill, past the ruins of Nero's golden house, upon which the baths were built. The scale of the complex is staggering. It is not just a bathhouse. It is a city within a city. It contains libraries, lecture halls, art galleries, gardens, and exercise yards. You enter the complex, and the first thing you must do is find the apoditerium, the changing room. This is a large hall lined with hundreds of small niches or cubbies for storing your clothes. This is also the most dangerous part of the visit. Theft is rampant. There are no lockers, no keys. You simply fold your tunic and sandals, place them in a niche, and hope for the best. Some wealthy patrons bring a slave specifically to guard their clothes. You have no such luxury. You choose a niche high up, hoping it will be less conspicuous. You are now naked, like every other man in the baths, from the senator to the slave. The baths are the great equalizer, a place where social distinctions are temporarily stripped away, literally. Your first stop is the palestra, the open-air exercise yard. The sun is hot on your bare skin. The yard is filled with men of all ages and body types. Some are lifting weights, simple stone dumbbells. Some are wrestling, their bodies oiled and glistening. Others are playing a form of handball, throwing a small, hard ball against a wall. The air is filled with the grunts of exertion and the shouts of the players. You don't participate. You are here to clean yourself, not to tire yourself out further. You are still weary from the morning's labor, if you can call the Salutatio that. You move from the heat of the yard into the bath block proper. You enter the tepidarium, the warm room. The change in atmosphere is immediate. The air is warm and steamy, filled with the sound of echoing voices and splashing water. The room is vast, its ceiling a high, vaulted arch. The light filters in through high windows, illuminating the steam that hangs in the air like a fog. Men are lounging on marble benches, chatting, conducting business, or simply relaxing. This is the social hub of the baths. You sit for a while, letting the warmth seep into your bones, feeling the grime and the tension of the day begin to dissolve. Next, you move to the caldarium, the hot room. The heat here is intense, almost suffocating. The room is smaller, the air thick with steam from the pool of scalding water at one end. You sweat instantly, profusely. The pores of your skin open up, releasing the dirt of the city. You lower yourself into the hot pool. The water is almost painfully hot, but you grit your teeth and submerge yourself. After a few minutes, you climb out, your skin red and tingling. Now comes the most important part of the Roman bathing process. You need a strigil. This is a curved metal scraper. You don't own one, but you can rent one for a small fee, or you can find a slave who will perform the service for you. You pay a slave a coin. He takes the strigil, and with firm, practiced strokes, he scrapes the oil, sweat, and dirt from your body. You watch in fascination as long, gray rolls of filth are scraped from your skin. It is a deeply satisfying feeling. Finally, you make your way to the frigidarium, the cold room. This room contains a large, deep pool of unheated water. Without hesitation, you plunge in. The shock of the cold water is breathtaking. It closes your pores, jolts your senses, and washes away the last of the grime. You emerge from the cold plunge feeling reborn. You are clean. It is a sensation that you will not feel again until your next visit. You are cleaner than you have been in a week. Your skin tingles. Your muscles are relaxed. For a brief, fleeting moment, you feel almost human. You retrieve your tunic from the apoditerium. Miraculously, it is still there. You pull the rough wool back over your clean skin. The contrast is jarring. You leave the baths and step back out into the late afternoon sun. You have 1 sesterce left. The day is waning. The shadows are beginning to lengthen. You could go home, but the thought of your dark, stuffy room is unappealing. Today is a festival day, the Ludi Romani, and there are chariot races at the Circus Maximus. With your last coin, you can get into the highest, cheapest seats. The Circus Maximus is a structure of almost unimaginable size, a vast, oblong arena capable of holding more than 150,000 spectators. As you approach, the sound of the crowd hits you. It is a roar unlike any other, a deep primal sound that is the voice of the Roman mob. You pay your coin and begin the long climb up to the top tier of seating. The steps are steep and crowded. You find a space on a wooden bench, squeezed between a fat merchant and a wiry-looking artisan. The view from up here is vertiginous. The track below seems a mile away. The chariots are tiny specks of color, but the atmosphere is electric. The crowd is divided into factions, each with its own color. The reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens. The loyalty to these factions is fierce, almost religious. People scream insults at the opposing teams, they wave banners. They place frantic bets with the bookies who roam the stands the man next to you, the merchant by the smell of him. A faint aroma of exotic spices clinging to his sweat-stained tunic screams himself hoarse for the blues. On your other side, the artisan, whose hands are permanently stained with some dark dye, is a fanatical green. You, by virtue of proximity and a general contrarian streak, find yourself pulling for the greens as well. You have nothing riding on this, not a single bronze coin, but in the circus, neutrality is not an option. You are swept up in the collective madness. It is a form of belonging, a temporary cure for the profound loneliness of the city. Down below, the pre-race procession, the pompa circenses, begins. It is a grand, formal affair that feels strangely out of place amidst the baying of the crowd. It enters through the great arch, led by the magistrate sponsoring the games, riding a chariot himself, dressed like a triumphant general. He is followed by priests, by young men of noble birth on horseback, by musicians playing horns and trumpets, and by attendants carrying statues of the gods and goddesses who will preside over the day's events. Neptune, god of horses, Consus, an ancient god of the granary whose altar is buried beneath the track itself. Finally, the charioteers themselves parade past, standing in their light, two-wheeled chariots, each drawn by a team of 4 horses. They are magnificent. The horses are groomed to perfection, their muscles rippling. The charioteers are athletes in their prime, lean and powerful. They are slaves, most of them, or freedmen, but in this arena they are gods. They salute the magistrate's box, where the emperor himself might be sitting, and then they wheel their chariots around to the starting gates, the carceres. There are 12 gates. The chariots are assigned their starting positions by lot. The tension in the crowd becomes a palpable thing. The betting, which had been a loud roar, subsides to a frantic, buzzing murmur. The artisan next to you is muttering a prayer to his chosen green driver. The merchant is promising a generous sacrifice to the gods if his blues win. The horses snort and stamp in the narrow gates, eager to run. The drivers stand poised, reins wrapped tightly around their waists. This is a crucial detail. The reins are wrapped around their bodies to give them maximum leverage and control over 4 powerful, barely tamed animals. It is also what makes the sport so deadly. If the chariot crashes, the driver will be dragged along with it, unless he can use the small, sharp knife tucked into his belt to cut himself free in time. The magistrate in his box stands up. He holds a white cloth, the mappa. A hush falls over 150,000 people. It is a silence so profound, so sudden, that it is more shocking than the noise that preceded it. The city outside, with its carts and its shouting, ceases to exist. There is only this moment. The magistrate raises his arm. He lets the cloth drop. The gates fly open. The roar that erupts from the crowd is not a human sound. It is a force of nature, a tidal wave of sound that shakes the very foundations of the stands. The 12 chariots surge forward onto the sand-covered track. It is a cavalry charge of chaos. The first 100 yards are a desperate scramble for position before the first turn. Whips crack like gunfire. Drivers scream at their horses at each other. Wheels interlock. Dust billows up, a thick, choking cloud that partially obscures the view. The race is 7 laps, 7 times around the central barrier, the spina, which is decorated with captured obelisks, statues, and the 2 sets of lap counters, 7 golden dolphins that are tipped down, and 7 large eggs that are raised, 1 for each completed lap. The real art of the race is not on the straightaways, but at the 2 sharp turning posts, the meta at either end of the spina. To win, a driver must take the turn as tightly as possible, hugging the post. But this is also the point of maximum danger. It is the kill zone. By the 3rd lap, the factions have settled into their rhythm of chanting and screaming. The Greens have a driver in the light, a young Thracian named Scorpus. He is a master. He drives with a cool, calculated precision that is beautiful to watch. He keeps his team on the inside lane, forcing the others to go the long way around. The artisan next to you is ecstatic, on his feet, screaming Scorpus's name until the veins in his neck bulge. Then at the far turn, disaster. A driver for the Reds, trying an aggressive move on the inside, misjudges the turn. His inside wheel clips the base of the meta. The sound of splintering wood is barely audible over the crowd, but the result is instantaneous and horrific. The chariot disintegrates. The driver is thrown, but the reins are still wrapped around his waist. He is dragged. His body bounces and tumbles on the sand as his terrified horses, now leaderless, continue to gallop. Two other chariots, coming up fast behind, cannot avoid the wreck. They pile into it. One flips over completely, crushing its driver. The other loses a wheel and careers into the wall. It is called a naufragium, a shipwreck. The crowd lets out a collective gasp, a sound of horror and exhilaration. Attendants rush onto the track to clear the debris and drag the bodies, living or dead, out of the way. The race does not stop. It does not pause. The remaining chariots swerve around the carnage, their drivers' faces set like stone. The artisan next to you sits down heavily, his face pale. The crashed red driver was one of his faction's main rivals, but the reality of the sport is a sobering thing, even for the most fanatical. The race continues. Scorpus for the greens is still in the light, but a blue driver, a veteran African, is closing the gap. He is a different kind of driver, more aggressive, more brutal with his whip. For the final 2 laps, it is a duel between them. The crowd is a single, unified being, its mood swinging with every shift in position. On the final straight, the blue driver pulls his team level with Scorpus. They are neck and neck. The whips are a blur. The horses are straining, foam flying from their mouths. The roar of the crowd is a physical pressure in your chest. You are on your feet, shouting with everyone else, your earlier detachment completely gone. You want the green to win. You need him to win. It feels, in this moment, like the most important thing in the world. In the final few feet, the blue driver finds one last burst of speed. His lead horse's nose crosses the finish line a fraction of a second before Scorpus's. A wave of groans and curses sweeps through the green and red sections. A deafening cheer erupts from the blues and whites. The merchant next to you is embracing strangers, his face red with triumph. The artisan slumps back onto the bench, defeated, all the energy drained out of him. You feel a similar deflation. A stupid, pointless disappointment. The winner takes a victory lap, a palm branch in one hand, a laurel wreath on his head. He is showered with flowers and applause. He is a hero. Scorpus, the loser, guides his exhausted horses off the track, his face unreadable. He will race again tomorrow or the day after, if he lives. The games are over. The sun is low in the sky, casting long shadows across the city. The great crowd begins to pour out of the circus, a slow-moving, noisy river of humanity. You are carried along with it, back into the reality of the streets. The magic of the arena evaporates, replaced by the familiar anxieties of the evening. Your stomach is empty again. Your brief feeling of cleanliness from the baths is gone, replaced by a layer of dust and the sweat of the excited crowd. You are penniless. The problem of dinner, of the next meal, is no longer an abstract concept. It is an urgent, gnawing reality. As you shuffle along with the throng, you feel a hand on your shoulder. You flinch, expecting a pickpocket, but it is a familiar face. Marcus, a man who lives in the cubiculum next to yours. He is a porter, a baeulus, a man whose body is a testament to a life of carrying heavy loads. His shoulders are broad, his arms thick with muscle. He is smiling, a rare sight. Lucius, a terrible race for the greens, eh? The gods favored the blues today, you reply, the standard, non-committal response. The gods favored me for once, Marcus says, holding up a small leather pouch that jingles. A senator hired me to carry his legal scrolls to the Basilica Aemilia. He was in a good mood, a generous tip. He sees the look on your face, the tired, hungry expression you are not trying to hide. Come, let me buy you dinner. No man should face the Subura on an empty stomach. The offer is a small miracle. It is the unwritten code of the insula. When you have a little extra, you share it. Because next week, next month, the roles might be reversed. It is a form of social insurance, the only kind you have. I cannot let you, you say, the pro forma refusal. Nonsense, he says, clapping you on the back with a hand that feels like a slab of stone. I know a popina near the Forum Boreum. The wine is terrible, but the sausage is cheap. You follow him away from the main flow of traffic, down a series of increasingly narrow and dark alleys. The character of the city is changing with the fading light. The respectable shops are closing, their heavy wooden shutters being barred from the inside. The daytime sounds of commerce are being replaced by the sounds of the night. Laughter and angry shouts spill from the doorways of taverns. The smell of charcoal smoke, cooking meat, and stale wine hangs in the air. This is the Rome that the poets and historians warn you about, the Rome of shadows and sudden violence. The Papina Marcus leads you to is little more than a cellar. You descend a few steep steps into a low-ceilinged room, thick with smoke from oil lamps that do little to pierce the gloom. The place is crowded with men like you and Marcus, laborers, sailors from the nearby Tiber docks, off-duty soldiers, and a few shifty-looking characters in the corners who you instinctively avoid making eye contact with. The air is a cocktail of sweat, cheap wine, and frying onions. You find a space at a rough wooden table, its surface sticky with the spills of countless previous customers. Marcus goes to the counter and returns with a clay jug of wine, 2 earthenware cups, a loaf of dark bread, and a plate of sizzling, fatty sausages swimming in a thin sauce. He pushes a cup and a piece of bread towards you. "To survival," he says, raising his cup. "To survival," you echo and take a long drink. The wine is as bad as he promised, sour and acidic, but it is wet and alcoholic. The sausage is greasy and full of gristle, but it is hot and savory. You eat ravenously, tearing off chunks of bread to soak up the sauce. You don't talk much. There is little to say. You both know the contours of each other's lives. The struggle is a shared, unspoken language. You listen to the noise around you. An argument over a game of dice at a nearby table is growing louder. 2 sailors are singing a bawdy sea shanty. The proprietor is shouting at a slave in the kitchen. This is the soundtrack of your leisure. When the jug is empty and the plate is clean, Marcus pays the bill. It costs him almost all of his tip. You step back out into the night. It is fully dark now. The moon is a sliver, offering no real light. The streets of the Subura are a black labyrinth. This is the most dangerous time. The vigil's patrols are supposed to keep the peace, but they are few and far between, and they rarely venture into the deepest, most tangled parts of the district. The night belongs to the grassadders, the muggers, who lurk in unlit doorways and ambush passers-by. Marcus lives in the same building, but his route home diverges from yours for the last few hundred yards. "Walk carefully, Lucius," he says, his voice a low whisper. "Keep to the middle of the street." He disappears into the darkness, and you are alone. The silence is more terrifying than the noise. Every sound is magnified. The scuttling of a rat in a pile of garbage, the distant cry of a baby from a high window, your own footsteps on the uneven stones. You walk quickly, your head on a swivel. Your senses are on high alert. You can smell the foul water in the gutters. You can feel the damp night air on your skin. Your heart is pounding in your chest. A flicker of light from a torch ahead makes you freeze. You press yourself into a recessed doorway, holding your breath. It is a wealthy man, carried in a litter, with 4 armed slaves surrounding him, their torches casting dancing, monstrous shadows on the walls. They pass by, their footsteps receding. You wait until they are long gone before you step back out. You are almost there. You can see the familiar, leaning shape of your insula against the slightly less black sky. You hurry the last few steps, your hand fumbling for the handle of the great door. It opens with a familiar groan. You slip inside and bar it behind you. You are safe, or at least safer. You begin the long climb up the stairs. It is pitch black inside. You guide yourself with one hand on the damp, crumbling wall. The sounds of the building at night are intimate and unsettling. Through the thin walls, you hear a man snoring, a woman coughing a deep, wet cough that sounds like sickness, the muffled sounds of an argument, the rhythmic creak of a bed from the apartment below. Life, in all its messy, private detail, presses in on you. You reach your floor, find your door, and step into your room. The darkness is absolute. The air is stale and close, the same air you left this morning. You don't light your lamp. Oil is a luxury, and you have none to spare. You strip off your sandals and lie down on the straw mattress, still in your tunic. Your body aches. Your mind is a whirl of the day's sensations, the roar of the circus, the heat of the baths, the taste of the sausage, the fear in the dark street. You have survived. You have navigated the city's treacherous currents from one dawn to the next. You have filled your belly. You have not been crushed or stabbed or taken by a fever. You have won. But it is a victory with no prize. There is only the certainty that tomorrow you must do it all again. You close your eyes. The sounds of the city, the great sleepless beast, murmur on. The rumble of a cart defying the band, the distant shout, the eternal, restless hum of a million lives packed too closely together. Sleep does not come easily. It never does. You lie there in the dark and you wait for the first hint of gray in the air, the signal to begin the struggle once more. The struggle is all there is. It is the engine of Rome, the fuel that fires its glories and its horrors. And your part in it is simple, to endure, to get up and do it again, and again, and again until the day you don't. You lie there in the profound, consuming blackness of the cubiculum, and you listen. You listen to the city breathe. It is a diseased and troubled breath. From the room next door, through the thin partition of wood and plaster, comes the cough. It is not the dry, clearing of the throat kind of cough. It is a wet, deep, rattling sound that seems to tear its way out of the woman's chest. You have been hearing it for weeks. It has become part of the room's soundscape, as constant as the creaking of the floorboards above or the distant, muffled shouts from the street. In the last few days, it has grown worse. It is a sound that speaks of fever, of lungs filling with fluid, of a body losing its battle. You don't know her name. You have seen her, a thin, tired-looking woman with two small children. You have nodded to her on the stairs, but in the Subura, you do not get close. Closeness is a liability. Grief is a luxury you cannot afford. Her struggle is her own. Her cough is a reminder of the invisible enemies that stalk these crowded alleys, enemies far more certain than any mugger. The fevers, the fluxes, the plagues that bloom in the city's filth and are carried on its breath. Sleep, when it finally comes, is not a peaceful escape. It is a shallow, fitful state, punctuated by dreams of falling from great heights and the relentless, echoing sound of that cough. You wake not to a feeling of rest, but to a deeper sense of exhaustion. The darkness is the same. The stale air is the same. The cold floor on your bare feet is the same. The cycle begins again. But today is different. Yesterday was a holiday, a day for the minimal obligation of the Salutatio, followed by the leisure of the baths and the circus. Today is a work day. The 6 sesterces from your patron, Titus Flavius Crispus, are a safety net, a guarantee against absolute starvation, but they are not enough to live on. Not if you want to save a few coins for a new pair of sandals when your current ones finally disintegrate. Not if you want to afford the occasional cup of wine that makes this life bearable. To earn that, you must find work. You perform the same morning rituals. The chamber pot emptied into the street below, the quick, perfunctory prayer to your household lar, the single piece of hard bread dipped in water. You pull on the same stiff woolen tunic. As you descend the stairs, you pass the door to the coughing woman's room. It is silent. There is no sound from within, not a cough, not a child's cry. The silence is more disturbing than the noise it replaced. You do not knock. You do not investigate. You hurry past, down into the waking clamor of the street. Your destination today is not the elegant Esquiline Hill. It is a construction site near the Colosseum. The emperor is always building. A new temple, a new aqueduct, another bath complex. These monumental projects are a statement of imperial power, a gift to the people of Rome, and most importantly for you, a source of employment. You are not a skilled craftsman. You are not a mason or a carpenter. You are a garrulus, a carrier, one of the countless unskilled laborers who perform the back-breaking work of moving materials. You arrive at the site as the sun is clearing the rooftops. The scene is one of organized chaos. The noise is different from the street noise. It is the rhythmic chipping of stonecutters, the grating sound of saws cutting through timber, the shouts of foremen, and the deep, groaning sound of a massive wooden crane lifting a block of travertine marble into the air. Hundreds of men are swarming over the skeleton of the new building. Slaves, branded and working in chained gangs, perform the most dangerous and grueling tasks. Freedmen and freeborn, poor like you, fill the ranks of the slightly less expendable. You find the foreman, the magister, a hard-faced man with a leathery tan and a voice like gravel. He looks you up and down, a quick, dismissive assessment of your muscle and stamina. He knows you. You have worked for him before. He grunts and points towards a massive pile of sand and a stack of empty baskets. The mortar mixers need sand, he barks. All day, 5 asses at sundown. 5 asses, less than 2 sesterces. It is a pittance for a full day of brutal labor under the hot sun. But it is work. It is money. You take it. You pick up a basket and a shovel. The work is mind-numbingly simple and physically punishing. You shovel sand into the basket, hoist the heavy load onto your shoulder, and carry it 50 yards across the uneven, treacherous ground to the men mixing mortar. You dump the sand, walk back, and repeat the process. Again and again and again. The sun climbs higher in the sky. It beats down on your neck and shoulders. Sweat stings your eyes and soaks your tunic, plastering it to your skin. The dust from the sand in the construction site fills your nostrils and coats your throat. Your muscles, still sore from yesterday's idleness, begin to scream in protest. You work alongside other men, a silent community of shared misery. There is no conversation, only the rhythmic scrape of shovels, the soft thud of feet on dirt, and the occasional grunt of exertion. You watch the masons high above on the wooden scaffolding. They move with a terrifying confidence, laying bricks and stone with no safety nets, no harnesses. A dropped tool, a misstep, a moment of dizziness from the heat could mean a fatal plunge to the ground below. You have seen it happen. The work barely pauses. The body is removed, and another man takes his place. Life is the cheapest commodity on this site. At midday, a horn blows. It is the break for prandium. You drop your basket and collapse in the sliver of shade offered by a half-finished wall. There is no trip to a thermopolium today. Your lunch is a piece of bread you brought with you, washed down with lukewarm water from a skin. You sit among the other laborers, chewing your dry meal. The conversation is sparse, cynical. Men complain about the foreman, the pay, the heat. An older worker next to you, a man named Gaius, whose face is a roadmap of wrinkles and old scars, points with his chin towards the Colosseum, its massive form looming over your worksite. I helped build that beast, he says, his voice a low rasp. He takes a swig of water. Under Vespasian, 10 years of my life, carried so much stone my back has been shaped like a bow ever since. He spits on the ground. And for what? So I can sit here, 30 years later, still carrying things for pennies, while the rich sit in the shade up there and watch men kill each other. He laughs, a short, bitter bark. At least the pay was better then. An emperor who has just won a civil war is more generous with his building projects. You listen without comment. Gaius's cynicism is a common currency here. Hope is a fool's game. You all know that the magnificent buildings you are creating, the structures that will awe the world for centuries, are built on the foundation of your anonymous, expendable labor. You are the human mortar holding the empire together. The horn blows again. The break is over. You get to your feet, your body stiff and protesting. You pick up your basket and your shovel. The afternoon is a long, slow torture. Your mind goes numb. You focus only on the next step, the next shovelful, the next trip. The sun is a merciless hammer. You feel a wave of dizziness and stop for a moment, leaning on your shovel. The foreman's eye is on you. Move it, Valerius, he shouts. You're not being paid to admire the architecture. You take a deep breath and force your body to obey. To stop is to be fired. To be fired is to go hungry. The logic is simple and brutal. Finally, as the shadows begin to lengthen and the sky turns a hazy orange, the horn blows for the last time. The workday is over. You join the line of exhausted, dirt-caked men waiting to be paid. The foreman's clerk sits at a table, a bag of coins in front of him. When your turn comes, he consults his list, finds your name, and counts out 5 heavy bronze asses into your palm. You clutch them tightly. They feel earned in a way the patron's sportula never does. Every muscle in your body aches with the proof of their worth. You leave the construction site, a ghost of a man covered in a pale film of dust. The thought of climbing the 4 flights of stairs to your room is unbearable. You need something to wash the dust from your throat and the weariness from your soul. You will not go to the grand baths of Trajan. You are too dirty, too tired, and you want to save your money. Instead, you head for one of the smaller, cheaper bathhouses in the Subura. This bath is nothing like Trajan's. It is a dark, cramped, and noisy place. The entrance fee is the same, a single quadrans, but the amenities are vastly different. The changing room is a chaotic mess, the risk of theft even higher. The warm room is small and overcrowded. The hot room is a tiny, suffocating cell filled with thick, foul-smelling steam, but the water is hot and the strigil is sharp. You scrape away the layers of dust, sweat, and grime. The process is less a luxurious ritual and more a necessary act of sanitation. The cold plunge is not into a grand, marble-lined pool, but into a large stone trough of murky water. Still, you emerge feeling marginally more human. You have money tonight, your 5 asses from work, plus the 6 sesterces from the morning's Salutatio. You are, for a brief moment, solvent. You decide not to go home for dinner. The silent room next door unnerves you. Instead, you find a small tavern, a caupona, even rougher than the one Marcus took you to. It is a single room, dimly lit by a few smoking lamps, filled with the loud, aggressive camaraderie of men at the end of a hard day. You buy a bowl of lentil stew and a cup of wine. You find a corner to yourself and eat slowly, savoring the warmth of the food. You are not here for the company. You are here to be alone in a crowd, to let the noise of other people's lives drown out the ache in your own body. You listen to the conversations around you. 2 men are arguing heatedly about the latest grain distribution. The annona, the free grain given to the citizens of Rome, is the bedrock of the city's stability. Any disruption to it, any rumor of a shortage, sends ripples of anxiety through the populace. A group of off-duty vigils are complaining about their commander. A merchant is drunkenly boasting about a recent shipment of Spanish olive oil. This is where the real news of the city is exchanged, not in the formal speeches of the forum, but here in the taverns and the bathhouses, in the whispers and the arguments of ordinary men. You sip your wine and feel the deep, pervasive exhaustion settle into your bones. It is a different feeling from yesterday. That was the weariness of leisure, of too much stimulation. This is the profound fatigue of physical labor, an ache that goes all the way to your marrow. As you finish your meal, a man stumbles into the tavern, his face pale with panic. "Fire," he shouts. "An insula on the Vicus Patricius. It's going up." The tavern empties in an instant, not out of civic duty, but out of morbid curiosity and fear. A fire in the Subura is a terrifying spectacle and a constant threat. You follow the crowd out into the street. In the distance, the night sky is glowing a hellish orange. A column of black smoke is rising into the air, carrying with it the smell of burning wood and something else, something sickeningly sweet. You join the stream of people running towards the blaze. The scene is one of pandemonium. An entire tenement block, a building just like yours, is engulfed in flames. Fire is leaping from the windows, licking at the night sky. The heat is intense even from 100 yards away. People are screaming, shouting for lost family members. A few brave souls are trying to rescue belongings, throwing furniture from the upper windows before being driven back by the heat. The vigils are there, a thin line of men with buckets and axes, but they are hopelessly outmatched. Their streams of water seem to evaporate before they even reach the flames. They are not trying to save the burning building. It is already lost. They are trying to stop the fire from spreading to the adjacent buildings, hacking down wooden balconies and dousing the walls with water. You stand there in the crowd of silent onlookers, and you watch the building die. You watch a family's entire world turn to ash. You see the structure groan, sag, and then collapse inwards with a deafening roar, sending a shower of sparks and embers high into the air. You think of your own room, your straw mattress, your single tunic, your small wooden lar. Everything you own could be gone in an instant. You think of the silent room next to yours. You wonder if the coughing woman and her children got out. You realize with a cold knot in your stomach that you will probably never know. They will just become another of the city's countless, nameless ghosts. The spectacle is over. The fire will smolder for days, a blackened, stinking wound in the heart of the neighborhood. You turn away and begin the walk back to your own precarious home. The fear you felt last night from the threat of a mugger seems small and insignificant now. The true dangers are not just the men who lurk in the shadows, but the very structures you live in, the air you breathe, the constant, grinding poverty that wears you down day by day. You climb the 4 flights of stairs. Your legs are heavy as lead. The building feels different tonight. You are acutely aware of the creaks and groans of the timber frame. You can smell the old wood, and you imagine the spark that could set it all alight. You reach your floor. The door to your neighbor's room is still closed. The silence is absolute. You enter your cubiculum. You lie down. You have survived another day. You have labored, you have earned, you have eaten. But survival feels less like a victory and more like a temporary postponement of an inevitable fate. You are a single fragile thread in the vast, chaotic tapestry of Rome, and threads can snap at any moment. You close your eyes, but the image of the fire is burned onto the inside of your eyelids. The orange glow, the black smoke, the terrifying roar of the collapse. You know you will not sleep well tonight. You know that tomorrow, you will have to rise again in the darkness and face it all once more, carrying the memory of those flames with you. The night offers no rest. Sleep is a distant shore you cannot reach. Every time you drift towards it, the image of the collapsing insula pulls you back, the phantom roar of it echoing in your ears. You are acutely aware of the thinness of the walls, the fragility of the floorboards, the immense weight of the families sleeping in the rooms above you. Your home, your only sanctuary, has revealed itself to be a trap, a tinderbox waiting for a spark, a pile of badly joined timbers waiting for the excuse to fall. And through it all, there is the silence from the room next door. It is a heavy, suffocating silence, a void where the sound of suffering used to be. You do not know when you finally fall asleep, but when you wake, it is to a familiar, unsettling gray. The 5th hour, the beginning, but something has shifted in you. The routine feels different today, not just a struggle, but a charade, a pointless pantomime performed in a condemned theater. You swing your legs out of bed. The floor is cold. The air is stale. You reach for the chamber pot and you stop. The silence, it is still there, unbroken. You have spent your life in this city, learning the most important rule of survival. Mind your own business. Do not look. Do not ask. Do not get involved. Your neighbor's fate is not your concern, because caring is a weight you cannot afford to carry. But the fire changed something. The sight of that building turning into a funeral pyre for dozens of nameless souls has cracked the hard shell of your indifference. That silence is no longer a sound you can ignore. It is a question that demands an answer. You leave the chamber pot. You walk to the thin partition that separates your room from hers. You press your ear against the rough, cold plaster. You hear nothing, not a breath, not a rustle of straw, nothing. You pull back, your heart is a slow, heavy drum in your chest. You walk out of your room into the dark corridor. You stand before her door. It is crudely made like yours. It is slightly ajar. You push it open. The smell hits you first. It is the smell of sickness and poverty, the familiar scent of unwashed bodies and stale air, but underneath it there is something else. A faint, sweet, cloying odor, the smell of decay. The room is a mirror of your own, a small, windowless box, a straw mattress on a low frame, a water amphora in the corner. She is on the mattress, on her side, facing away from the door. One arm is draped off the edge, the fingers curled slightly, as if reaching for something she had dropped. There is a stillness about her that is more absolute than sleep. You know, without having to see her face, that the coughing has stopped forever. The 2 small children are gone. There is no sign of them, only 2 small, hollow depressions in the straw next to their mother. You stand there for a long moment, a silent witness in the doorway. There is no shock, no great wave of grief. There is only a profound and hollow emptiness. This is how it ends for so many, not in the roar of the Colosseum or on a distant battlefield, but here in a dark room in silence, defeated by an enemy you cannot see. Her name is gone. Her story is over. By midday, the landlord will have her body taken away by the Libitinare, the undertakers for the poor. Her meager possessions will be thrown into the street. The room will be rented to another desperate family. By nightfall, it will be as if she never existed. You back out of the room, pulling the door gently closed. You have your answer. The silence is no longer a mystery. It is a fact. You go back to your room. You pick up the chamber pot. You carry it to the opening at the end of the hall and empty it into the street below. You pull on your tunic. You strap on your sandals. You dip your finger in the water and touch the head of your lar, but today you do not pray. The gesture is hollow, a habit without faith. The gods of Rome are for the grand temples and the victorious generals. They have no jurisdiction here in the quiet tragedies of the fourth floor. You descend the stairs. You step out into the street. The city is roaring to life, just as it did yesterday, just as it will tomorrow. The carts are rumbling. The shopkeepers are shouting. The river of humanity is already flowing towards the forum, towards the construction sites, towards the patrons' houses. It is all the same. The fire is a memory. The dead woman is a ghost that only you can see. The city has not noticed her passing. It has not paused. It will not mourn. It is a great, unthinking beast, and it is hungry. It demands your labor, your fear, your attention. It demands that you forget. You join the crowd. You let the current take you. You must find your patron. You must get your sportula. You might have to find work later, carrying sand or hauling amphory. You will need to eat. You will need to visit the baths to wash away the grime. You might, if you have a coin to spare, buy a cup of wine to dull the edges of the day. You must do all the things you did yesterday. You must perform all the steps. Because that is the final, brutal answer to the question, what did it take to survive a day in ancient Rome? It took the ability to walk out of your building and not look back at the silent door. It took the strength to hear the cries of the city and ignore them, to focus only on your own rumbling stomach and your own aching feet. It took the will to see a man fall from a scaffold, or a family burn in their home, or a neighbor die alone, and to turn your face away, to keep walking, to erase them from your mind. Survival was an act of forgetting. It was a daily hardening of the heart, a slow, calculated stripping away of the parts of you that might feel or pity or grieve. It was the understanding that you were a single, insignificant drop in a merciless ocean, and the only way to keep from being swallowed whole was to become as cold and as hard and as relentless as the city itself. It took everything you had, and then, when you thought you had nothing left to give, it took more.